everybody. Old Buck Dave here again.
And guess who's looking at him?
Stared at each other right in the eyeballs.
Yep, Old Buck Dell.
That is Old Buck Dell. So what the heck is going on down here?
Well, it is certainly good to see you again. Obviously, we had been a little bit separated for a while, and it's happy to, to lay an eyeball on you. And I got to admit, the Old Bucks, we're interested in things in the world. We sometimes, if we find a good book, we actually contact the author. So when we have questions about stuff, we're not afraid to ask.
We have done that. We both of us have written to authors. I think we've talked about that in past episodes.
And my fascination with Elon and space travel. I did offer to go to Mars for him, so I wondered if in space, at our age, perhaps space would be, therapeutic.
Okay, yeah.
And if you had an ailment or something that the lack of gravity could, help with. So one of the things that I would say troubles me is that acid reflux thing. I think I've developed a pretty good case of that.
It's an old guy's thing.
Yeah, an old guy's thing. But I how do you find that out? So I actually wrote a letter.
You wrote a letter?
I did write a letter. It wasn't a long letter, of course. My thoughts don't go
I didn't mean
much.
to sound surprised there.
My thoughts don't go other than a couple sentences. But I did wonder about something, so I wrote a letter to a national magazine that could theoretically answer that question.
Will you read the letter to us? Or?
The question was, are burping and acid reflux different for astronauts in space since there's no right side up? And my logic being that
sure.
On Earth, if I hang upside down with acid reflux, I'll really suffer big time with that. And I got a reply. They actually checked with an astronaut. I mean, not astronaut, NASA.
You going to read the reply, or are you going to paraphrase it?
I can't. Why don't you read the reply from me?
You
wrote it down. I can't read your writing.
Okay.
But they wrote the answer to it.
So this was the answer to Dell's actual letter. And the answer is yes. In microgravity, air stays intermixed with food particles, says Jennifer Levasseur, curator at the National Air and Space Museum. So you went right to the top, buddy. So burping in space is more likely to result in vomiting. That's good news. Astronaut Jim Newman developed his own technique to reduce the likelihood of vomiting. He'd push off a wall to create a force that separated the food from the gases in his stomach, much the way gravity does. So there it is.
So my question is answered. That is a problem, and
it is a problem.
And I would, if when I get my trip to the Mars or wherever I can, whatever ship I can get on, because they only got a few months. I can't spend years up there. My question is answered. That would be a problem for me. I would have to be careful. So the Old Bucks have, we have this interest in those things, and we did right, and we got a reply, and there you go.
Congrats to you, buddy. You went right to NASA. That's great.
Well, actually, there was a National Aeronautic. It wasn't NASA themselves. It was a National Space Museum.
National Air and Space Museum.
Right.
Impressive.
So Dale wrote a letter.
I'm loving that big grin on your face. Oh, man.
Hey, talking about space, did you ever watch Big Bang Theory?
I have watched that, yes.
For years, I never paid any attention to what Sheldon was trying to do. I don't know if anybody, there's probably some Big Bang fans out there, and I never really paid any attention. He was called it string theory and dark matter. I just did not know what they were talking about. I didn't have any interest in finding out.
Mm-hmm.
So not long ago, this old buck was watching a nova, and I think I finally figured it out. I finally figured out what they were talking about. And do you know what I'm talking about, Dave? Do you know what dark matter is?
In a very, very, very basic sense, I know what dark matter is.
So what's your definition?
Are you interested? Okay. Well, I mean, scientists have estimated that probably 80% of the universe is dark matter. That's matter that we can't see. It doesn't reflect light. It doesn't absorb light. Doesn't emit light. Okay. It's kind of non-electromagnetic. All right.
Yeah, so the name becomes very obvious at that point.
Yeah, and the way they came up with
but
this,
they consider it matter.
They came up with this is when they study the way galaxies spiral, the way they predicted based on measuring, estimating the mass of all the objects in the galaxy, says it should spin this way at this rotation in the core and a different rotation out in the perimeter.
Uh-huh.
And when they observed it, it didn't follow the rules that they predicted. So they said, there's got to be something else out there that we can't see that's causing this to happen, because it's a clear effect. It's not rounding errors or anything like that. So it got named dark matter.
And so when you see the Enterprise flying through space, boldly going where no man has gone before,
right?
It's flying through that dark matter. That's
well,
what it was.
it's everywhere. They've never really. They're still looking for it. Okay, they're still looking for it.
Now, didn't we have a letter? Didn't we have a letter from afar that requested our thoughts on that? Because I have a simple solution.
Let me see this.
A lot of scientists apparently have been working on this a long time to figure out what it is.
Yeah, here it is. Let me pull this up. It says, "Dear Bucks, I stumbled into your podcast while researching how long old bucks live in the wild. Clearly, you collectively have a grasp on big ideas. I would like to challenge you to explain the concept of dark matter to a layman like me. Old Buck Wimmer J. from West Virginia. P.S. Your podcast card tricks are amazing." So,
wow. Well, thank you, Wimmer, for that letter.
Wimmer. Thanks for.
So I hope Wimmer's listening.
J.
Yeah, I hope Wimmer is listening. But see, they're struggling to find out what it is. So my solution, and you may offer an alternative to this, but my solution is, Elon, if he agrees to send me to Mars, on the spaceship, because it's only maybe a 7-month trip or something, I was willing to go. And
yeah.
If I didn't come back, who cares, right? So,
well, it would be $1.
Right. So, so I figured if he sent me, what I would do is, while I was on my way to Mars, clearly I would be in the dark matter, right? I'd be amongst it.
You would be amongst the dark matter.
I would be amongst the dark matter. I would simply wind down my driver's side window.
Wind down the window.
Take a mason jar, stick it out there, hold it out there for a few seconds, and put the cap on it while it's out there, and then bring it back into the spaceship, and then wait till I got home, and then look to see what it was. Look at the little molecules in there, and I'd know what dark matter was. See how simple that is? The old bucks have big ideas.
I bet you Wimmer J's got a big smile on his face right now.
I'm sure he understands this, but that's what it is.
So that's what you would do.
It's just a mason jar full of stuff between here and Mars.
I have one request. Don't ask me to go on the trip with you.
Just we'll slow the ship down a little bit when we wind the window down.
When you wind the window down,
so we can stick our hand out, and not get it blown off.
You didn't do really well in science class.
I did
in
not.
High school, as I recall. Okay.
I remember I did not. All the sciences that I managed to get through is because they were all coaches and I played ball.
That's right. That's right.
So, if you have do you have any serious comments about dark matter?
Well, I actually have my own dark matter story of sorts.
All right.
And it'll become apparent eventually why this is a dark matter story.
Okay.
So we've already talked about.
It wouldn't be a play on words, would it?
I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll see.
We'll have to wait and see what I say. I'm not sure what I'm going to say yet. Okay, this was something that happened to me back in my work career. I was in Reno, Nevada, doing some work at a plant near there, one of our plants near there. it doesn't rain very much out there, okay? It's kind of
Dry.
on the fringe of the desert. But this night I was coming back from dinner or something, driving back to my hotel, trying to get off the expressway, and it was just pouring down rain. It was screaming rain. So I pulled off at my exit, and then at the end of the exit, it split into a left turn and a right turn. Then when I realized I was in the left turn lane, and I really wanted to do the right turn to my hotel. My hotel was basically right across the street. So I thought, well, okay, it's pouring rain. There's nobody around. I'll just back up a little bit and pull into the right lane.
Obvious.
Right.
Obvious.
Yeah, obvious. And then, bang, there was somebody back there. Okay. So, oh, geez, I get out of the car. It's a woman in the car behind me. It's an SUV. And she was very nice. And she says, oh, that's a shame. She says, what happened? I said, well, da-da-da. And the only thing that was wrong with her car, it appeared, was the front license plate holder broke off. I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't realize that until she drove away, actually. But I said, oh, we exchanged insurance information, blah, blah, blah. I was in a rental car. Yeah, I was soaked. I was absolutely soaked. So she says, okay, here's my name, here's my phone number. She says, I'm on my way to a dance lesson. I got to get to this dance lesson, and I'm right on the verge of being late already. So she said, look, just give me a call tomorrow. Now we'll sort this out. I said, that's great. So after she drives off, the rain got a little lighter, and I saw her front license plate. It was like a vanity plate. It wasn't the real license plate, lying on the road. So I picked it up. Next morning, I give her a call. She said, yep, here's my address. And it was a ritzy address. It was kind of up in the hills of Reno. There were a couple other people that had flown in. One of them was our HR guy, human resources guy. And I called him, and I said, I've got to deliver this to this woman, and I'd feel a lot better if there was somebody else with me, okay? Just keep everything.
That's a good move.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't know, she's up in a ritzy neighborhood. You know what I mean. So we'll call this guy Mo, the HR guy. Okay. That's not his real name, but we'll call him Mo.
To protect the innocent. We always change the names, right? Okay.
Yeah. So we get up to this place, and it's a gorgeous house up on the hill. So I'm standing there with Mo. She opens a door. I said hi, and she immediately spots Mo standing next to me. What I didn't tell you is Mo is like 6'3", Hollywood handsome, okay? This guy is ridiculous. At that point, I became dark matter. I no longer ceased to exist. I was like the static on AM stations.
Great analogy.
She dragged him in. She said, let me give you a tour of the house. She goes right to the bedroom. It's like, okay, Mo. So nothing. She was really a sweet woman. We had a nice time, a nice chat, but I just became invisible at that point. This is what dark matter is all about.
What's funny to me is that's an excellent analogy. When you become dark matter, you say it's when you become invisible in a circumstance where you thought you might have had a glimmer of hope of relaying your story or something, and immediately somebody tall and good looking comes by, and all the attention goes another direction.
Yep.
So you.
Yep. Story of my life.
So there's two versions of dark matter. One is when you become invisible because nobody's paying attention to you. You're dark matter, and then the theory of the particles that don't reflect light, yada yada yada, and my medicine jar will solve that problem when they bring it back.
That's it. I think we got it covered. So.
Thank you, thank you, Dave, for all that. So, moving along, yeah. Well, there was something else you wanted to talk about.
Well, this is kind of related in a way. You were complaining about having a problem with your backup camera in your car.
Oh, and my query to you was, does GM still make lemons?
Does GM still make lemons?
And your answer was?
The answer was, apparently, yes.
Well, now that you mentioned that,
Tell me your backup camera.
I have a GM.
Because I have one too.
I have a GM product, and the backup camera just obscures itself at night completely. You just if you put the backup lights on, it just disappears into a big blob of gray. And it is not very clear at all when you're backing up, even in the daylight. I thought at least if you put a camera on the car, the object was that it would help you back up to avoid
Dark matter.
Right, and dark matter.
Dark matter.
Dark matter. So, that being my logic, I said, surely if I take this car in and show them this and say, look at this camera, it's really not working the way I think it should, don't you think you ought to fix that?
Makes sense. Perfect sense.
Now this is, so I runs into a service writer. I think that's what they call those guys. You know, you go in, you have to, somebody takes your name.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Okay. So I runs into a boy, and this young lad begins to talk too much. And he begins to say, you know, not all cars are made the same. You know, sometimes they use different wires on this car and that car. And if you don't buy the expensive model, it may not be as good as this model.
Oh, don't you love that?
And I'm saying, I said, you know, I think you ought to be quiet because you're going to get yourself in trouble. I said, this is something that I would gladly lawyer up for because it becomes a matter of principle. And all the old Buck listeners know when it becomes a matter of principle, a man will stand his ground. Anyhow, I said, let's just do this. Why don't you just not say any more and just write the paperwork up and we'll talk to the service manager and see what he does. So I proceed to tell the service manager, and he looks at it, and he said, you know, he goes to his computer, he Googles some stuff and says, this may be a little cloudy, or this could be this, or this could be that. I said, well, you mean you deliberately put faulty cameras on these cars? So
Oops.
Yeah, I said, and if it's designed for safety and backing up purposes, would you not want it to work? And he's reading some more stuff about the possibility of the stars not align and the planets all have to be in sequence.
Maybe
and,
there's too much dark matter.
You know, maybe it just only happens on Tuesdays or something like that. And I said, how about this? I said, how about you replace it? And he said, you know, we have to charge these guys back for it or something. I said, well, how about this? You replace it, and if it changes, I win. and you're wrong.
And you're wrong.
I said, and if it doesn't change anything, then you win, I was wrong. So in the meantime,
fair. That makes a lot of sense.
That's a fair way to do this. And he kind of smiled a little bit. But I thought it was amusing that they first and said, hey, we'll handle this. We'll figure if we can do something for you. The worst case scenario is we'll change the camera and see what it makes a difference. They start to argue the point, and I'm sure this is across the board, of why they shouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Why your window really doesn't really need to go all the way down all the time, you know, or something. They're making you some excuse. And I even suggested, I said, why don't you just Google it? Why don't you just Google it and see what it says? Because I did before I went there. So the backup camera is a very simple thing. I think they said it might take 2 hours to change. I thought it would be simple. But to the listeners out there, I didn't get angry. I just used logic and say, if you're going to put a safety device on the car, it should work.
It should work.
It should work.
It should impart safety.
So I still have to get it replaced. I have to wait.
Oh, so they didn't replace it?
Well, they ordered it, and I have to wait a week or two before I can get in again to do it. I'd like to watch them do it because I could easily say we changed it. So
that's funny.
So that's it's still not over. But that's
still not over.
You know, well,
okay.
You had yours changed, didn't you? Did you?
Well, yeah, it's funny. Here's another way we were alike. While I was away, I had on my pretty new car, 1-year-old car.
Yeah.
The backup camera went out. Not only did the backup camera go out, it started sending me all kind of crazy signals, messages on the dashboard about, you're going to die, and
if you don't attend to this quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So I called the dealer and I said, I got a problem here. I keep getting all these messages. The camera works, then it doesn't work. He said, well, bring it in. We'll take a look at it. All right. So I take it in, and he said, we really can't fix it right now. He said, you got a problem with the backup camera system. All right.
The word system,
Yeah.
meaning it's a much more, pervasive than just this little tiny square thing. Yeah.
He said, we're going to have to reschedule you when we have more time to dig into it deeper. All right. So they scheduled an appointment for 2 weeks out. That's the first time that they could actually come in again in 2 weeks.
So in the meantime, I'm guessing you have your wife walking behind you with her cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holding it out.
Yeah, holding it out the window and
light up the back. Yeah. So I come back in 2 weeks, and they said, oh, this won't take long to do the analysis on this thing. 4 hours later, okay, I'm waiting for it in the showroom, drinking lots of coffee. He said, well, the system has to be replaced. The backup system has to be replaced. He said, that's why you're getting all these strange messages in your cameras. I said, okay, replace it. Well, it's in Germany. We don't have any. All right, it's in Germany. How long is that going to take? And they said, well, shipping's been an issue. He said, I'm guessing 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, my.
4 to 6 weeks. I said, wait a minute. It's the same. I said, this is a safety thing that I specifically wanted with the car.
Right.
And now I'm not going to have it for 4 to 6 weeks. He said, well, we'll give you a loaner.
Yeah, you can't, now you have to take it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. He said, we'll give you a loaner. I said, you give me a loaner for 4 to 6? Yeah. And I said, look, I may not be here in 4 to 6 weeks. I said, I got places to go. He said, oh, blah, blah, blah. He said, I'll tell you what, we'll get it airshipped. See, otherwise it was going to come across on a boat. We'll get it airshipped. I said, how long is that going to take? He said, about probably 2 weeks. All right. So I get the loan. 2 weeks later, show up for my new appointment. They called him, said, it's in, blah, blah. It's going to be $802. I said,
and you said,
the car is a year old. I have a 1-year warranty. And they said, well, if it would have gone bad on its own, then it would be covered. But he said, what happened is the drain lines got plugged up with dirt from trees or whatever, and it didn't drain back there, and all the water got into the module and started shorting everything out. I said, well, yeah, that means you guys have a bad design issue here. No, it happens. He says, think of it as like a rock hitting your windshield. The windshield didn't break on its own. So they do the replacement after it comes in,
mm-hmm.
and they give me a bill, and it's like $1,200. I say, wait a minute, $800 is bad enough. Where does this come from? Oh, we may be making a mistake, and it's $836. It's down to $8. I said, what's this other $34? He said, well, that's the cost of the air freight.
Now you are staying cool through this whole thing?
I was staying cool up to that point, I think.
Okay.
And I said, and no offense, but I said, this isn't a Chevy. I said, you got a bad design issue.
And the two old bucks may end up talking about it too, right? Might even mention the name of that car if they don't behave themselves. Yeah,
and here's the guy's empathetic response. We didn't build the car. The car was built in Germany.
You listening to this, folks?
Okay, that makes it all worth. Yeah, we didn't build the car.
So you got it fixed?
Well, I gave him my credit card. He charged me for it.
Okay.
And he said, "Well, I'll get somebody to pull the car around. We'll get it, getting it washed, and we'll get it blah blah blah." So while I'm waiting for it, there's a guy there's another customer in the next cubicle, and he's getting the same lecture. And I thought I was bad, and I'm overhearing this, and he said, "Well," and then it got into where your amplifier and your bass speaker are, and it shorted them out, so they're ruined. So you got to replace those. And I'm thinking, boy,
you need to put some duct tape around the windows on this car.
I feel a lot better now.
Well, this is funny in an unfunny sort of way.
In an unfunny sort of way.
So all the listeners out there who run into this issue, I mean, everybody kind of has to negotiate this himself. But you see, there's a theme of like, hey, we only sell these cars. We don't make them. Hey, we're not sure we can replace this. And you're going, man, if a good lawyer got a hold of this and say, you put a backup camera on a car, and the guy just ran over a guy with a bicycle because he couldn't see him. And my service manager offered me, he said, you remember in the old days, we used to use our mirrors. So I always suggest you use your mirrors. I said, I do that too.
Of course we do.
But if you're going to put it on, and I bought it with it on, it should work.
It should work.
You should not have it on there. So
anyway, that was kind of a rant there. What was it, like a double rant?
It was a double rant, but you did get yours fixed. So to speak.
It is fixed.
Okay.
It is fixed for now.
And so you just have to keep your brand new car out of the rain.
Out of the rain. Keep it in the garage, dust it off every day.
And ladies and gentlemen, all you listeners out there.
What a bunch of crap.
If this thing goes bad again, we will definitely give you the name of the car.
Oh.
And the old bucks, when the old bucks give you a tip, go ahead and run with it.
And are you listening, Morgan and Morgan?
Hey, they ought to take that up. They ought to say that if you have trouble with your car dealer, I bet they'd be swamped. They sound like they're more like an accident firm.
That's a big opportunity for these guys.
If you got a problem with your car,
okay,
you call us. So
all right.
Anyhow, enough car.
This will be on CBS next week.
Yeah,
just so you know
watch.
That.
Yeah.
You watch it. CBS is going to do an episode on backup cameras. Hey, you were telling me, I thought you had a Chevy, but you were talking to me that you had a Henry Kloss.
Oh,
is that?
Oh, I do own. I own a Henry Kloss Model 1.
What is that exactly?
I'm not going to tell you.
I mean, I know it's not a car, but I don't know what it is.
I am not going to tell you what that is. I'm going to let the listeners look that up. It's a Henry Kloss Model 1. And I can tell you it's not very big. And you'll see when you Google that.
Is it bigger than a backup camera?
It's bigger than a backup camera. And
Okay.
it is, it's an amazing device. I use it all the time. I was truly impressed with the way it works. And I would recommend it to anybody who seriously is interested in a quality device of this nature. So you folks out there, Google Henry Kloss. And
the first one to tell us gets...
Well, I think that there might be a few letters to the editor saying they have one or that they
I'd
they
like
agree.
to hear. BUCKSTWOOLD@gmail.com.
BUCKSTWOOLD
Bring them on, baby.
gmail.com.
Bring them on.
Sounds kind of exotic, doesn't it?
It does sound exotic. Henry Kloss, Model 1. Wow. All right.
I don't think there's a Model 2. Well, maybe there is, but I only have
Okay.
a Model 1. And I'm very happy with it.
All
So
right.
it works like a champ. So that's a challenge,
That's a challenge.
an old buck challenge to our listeners.
Well, my challenge to you is to help me say goodbye to all these loyal listeners.
Oh, man, it's so good to be back in the town and seeing you. And we want to say goodbye to all the listeners. And thank you very much.
And thank you very much. This is Old Buck Dave as well. Take care, everybody.